My wife cheated with my younger brother, and they stole $30,000 from me. I hired a private investigator, documented everything, and destroyed them legally, financially, and professionally before they saw it coming. I'm 28 years old. I work in corporate finance, and what happened a year and a half ago basically destroyed my entire life as I knew it. I mean, my marriage, my relationship with my younger brother, my whole family, everything. But the thing is, I need to tell this story because there are days when I still wake up and wonder if it really happened or if it was some kind of horrible nightmare. But then I remember the photos on my phone, the lawyer's documents, and I know it was real. That the two people I trusted most in the world betrayed me in the most spectacular way possible. I guess I should start at the beginning, when everything seemed normal, when I thought I had a perfect life. I married Lauren 4 years ago. We met in college, and it was one of those relationships that just flowed, you know? No drama, no complications. She was smart, funny, beautiful, and honestly, I thought I'd won the lottery. My younger brother, Ethan, who's 27, was always the family favorite, the golden child who, I could do anything and everyone adored him, but I never had a problem with that. Honestly, we were close, or at least that's what I thought. He worked in marketing for a tech startup, always with new projects and big ideas, and Lauren and he got along well, which seemed great to me because, you want your wife and your brother to get along, right? It's normal, healthy. Things started feeling weird about 2 years ago, but in such a subtle way that I didn't even register it consciously at first. Lauren started mentioning Ethan more often in casual conversations. Ethan said this, Ethan thinks that, and I just thought they were building their own friendship, which, again, seemed positive to me. Then they started spending more time together, going out to lunch when I was working, going to the gym together on Saturday mornings while I slept after exhausting weeks at the office, and when I'd ask them what they'd done, they'd give vague answers like, "Oh, just normal exercise, nothing special." Looking back, I should have seen it coming. But I was so buried in my work, in big projects that required all my attention, that I didn't pay attention to the signs that now seem so obvious. They make me want to hit myself for being an idiot. The truth is, everything exploded when I started noticing financial inconsistencies in our joint accounts. I work in finance. It's literally my profession to analyze numbers and patterns. So, when I saw regular withdrawals of exact amounts every 2 weeks for amounts I didn't recognize, like $2,000 here, $1,000, $500 there, my brain went into alert mode. I asked Lauren about it, and she told me it was for clothes, for the salon, normal expenses, but the numbers didn't add up because she has her own credit card and personal account for those things. We'd always handled it that way to maintain our financial independence within the marriage. So I started digging deeper, reviewing old bank statements, and discovered that the withdrawals had been happening for almost a year, adding up to more than $30,000 that had simply disappeared from our accounts without any real explanation. At the same time, I noticed that Lauren and Ethan were constantly exchanging messages. Their phones would ring at all hours and both would grab them quickly, with that urgency that makes you think, okay, something's going on here. One night, Lauren left her phone on the table while she showered, and I saw a notification from Ethan that said, "Need to see you tomorrow, it's important," with a heart emoji at the end, and that's when my stomach dropped, because brothers don't send each other heart emojis. They just don't. But I told myself I was overreacting, that maybe it was something about a surprise gift for me or some nonsense. Basically, I was in total denial because the alternative was too horrible to contemplate. I decided to take matters into my own hands in the most methodical way possible because, like I said, I work with numbers and strategies, so I put together a plan. I told Lauren I had a business trip to Chicago for a week for an important audit, something completely normal in my job, and she didn't even question anything, just said that was fine and she'd take advantage of it to catch up with her friends. Before supposedly leaving, I installed a tracking app on her phone, which I know sounds invasive and probably illegal, but at that moment I needed to know the truth, and I wasn't going to ask permission to find out if she was cheating on me. I left the house with my suitcase as if I were really going on a trip, checked into a hotel 20 minutes away, and started monitoring her movements from there. The first day, nothing out of the ordinary happened. She went to her work, to the supermarket, back home. But the second day, a Tuesday afternoon, I saw her move directly from her office to Ethan's apartment across town, and she stayed there for 5 hours. 5 damn hours, leaving around 11 at night. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. I felt like I was going to throw up. I needed something concrete they couldn't deny, because I knew that if I confronted them without solid proof, they'd simply deny it and make me feel like the paranoid crazy person. The next day, I did the same thing, tracked her, and again she went straight to Ethan's apartment after work. But this time they came out together around 7 inches the evening and went to a coffee shop downtown, one of those hipster places with art on the walls and indie music playing in the background. I followed them there, sat at a table on the other side of the place with a cap and sunglasses like I was some cheap private detective, and watched them sitting together in a corner, holding hands across the table, laughing, Lauren caressing Ethan's arm, in that way she used to caress mine when we were dating. And I took photos, dozens of photos with my phone, every angle I could capture without being obvious. At one point they kissed, a long, deep kiss that left no doubt about what was happening, and I just sat there, feeling like someone had stuck a knife in my chest and was slowly twisting it. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just froze watching my wife and younger brother act like a couple in love while my coffee got cold on the table in front of me. I left the coffee shop before they did, went back to the hotel, and spent the whole night awake looking at the photos over and over, as if I expected them to change or for there to be some alternative explanation that my brain wasn't seeing. But there wasn't one. The truth was simple and brutal. My wife and my brother were having an affair, and they'd been hiding it for who knows how long. Probably months, maybe more than a year, considering all those lunches and gym sessions that now made perfect sense. The part that hurt most, beyond the obvious betrayal, was thinking about all the times the three of us had spent time together. Family, dinners, vacations, Christmas parties, and they were probably exchanging secret glances and planning their meetings, while I was there completely oblivious like an idiot. But then I remembered the issue of the missing money, the $30,000 that hadn't been explained, and I decided to dig deeper into that before confronting anyone. Because I had a feeling there was more to this story than just an affair. I hired a private investigator, a guy recommended by Marcus, my best friend since college who works in corporate law, and I gave him access to all our bank statements along with the photos of the affair. The investigator, an older man named Tom, who seemed to have seen everything in his 30-year career, came back with results in less than a week, and what he found was worse than I'd imagined. Turns out Lauren had been transferring money to a hidden account that was linked to a fraudulent investment scheme run by a guy named Silas Hart, a known con artist in certain financial circles, for selling fake investment opportunities to people desperate to get rich quick. Ethan had apparently met Silas at some networking event and had introduced him to Lauren, convincing her it was an incredible opportunity, something about cryptocurrency and commercial real estate that would triple their investment in 6 months, pure smoke, basically. What infuriated me even more was that they were using my money from our joint accounts that I'd worked 60 hours a week to earn, to finance this idiotic scheme while having their affair. Tom showed me documents proving that Ethan had also invested his own money in the scheme, around $15,000, and that both were hoping to use the profits to, and I quote directly from a text message Tom intercepted, "start a life together away from Nicholas." When I read that, I felt something I'd never felt before, an absolute coldness that replaced all the sadness and pain I'd been feeling. It was like a switch had turned off in my brain, and suddenly I could see the whole situation with perfect clarity, without emotion, just facts and consequences. They hadn't just betrayed me. They'd robbed me. They'd planned to leave me and use my own money to do it. And they thought I was so stupid I'd never figure it out. That night, I put together a complete plan, wrote out every step on my laptop in the hotel room, from how to confront them to how to make sure they paid for what they'd done, and I decided that if they wanted to play dirty, I could play dirtier. I went home the next day as if nothing had happened. Lauren greeted me with a kiss on the cheek and asked how the trip was, and I smiled and told her it had been productive. Very productive. That night during dinner, I acted completely normal. We talked about her day, about my invented one in Chicago, about plans for the weekend. And the whole time I had the photos on my phone and the financial documents in my backpack, waiting for the right moment. I decided to wait a few more days to gather additional evidence and consult with lawyers before making my move, because I knew I'd only have one chance to do this right, and I couldn't ruin it by acting impulsively. I contacted Gregory, my family's lawyer, who was also a close friend of my parents, and showed him everything. The photos, the bank records, the information about Silas Hart's scheme, everything. Gregory, who's like 55 years old and has probably seen thousands of divorces and fraud cases, was quiet for a long moment after reviewing everything, and then looked at me and said, "This is one of the most solid cases I've seen. You can bury them if you want." I told him that's exactly what I wanted to do. Bury them legally in every way possible, and he started putting together the strategy while I kept acting normal at home, as if nothing was happening. Marcus came to visit me one night when Lauren was supposedly at a yoga class, but probably at Ethan's apartment, and I told him everything. Marcus is one of those friends who just listen without judging, and after I finished my story, he just said, "Man, I'm so sorry. This is fucked up. But I'm glad you're handling it with a cool head, because a lot of guys in your situation would do stupid things." He was right. Part of me wanted to confront them immediately, yell at them, maybe even hit Ethan, but I knew that would only make me look bad and give them ammunition in any future legal proceedings. So I restrained myself and stuck with the plan. Finally, the day of confrontation came. A Saturday morning, about 3 weeks after discovering everything. I'd asked Gregory to prepare all the necessary documents to freeze our joint accounts and the hidden account Lauren had been using, and had scheduled everything to happen that same day. Lauren was in the living room watching TV when I came downstairs with my laptop and the folder full of evidence, and I told her we need to talk, in a tone that apparently scared her because she immediately went pale and turned off the TV. I sat across from her, opened the laptop, and showed her the photos of her and Ethan at the coffee shop, on the street holding hands, all the ones I'd taken. Her reaction was exactly what I expected. First, denial, saying the photos were taken out of context, that they were just friends, that I was misinterpreting everything. But when I showed her the photos of the kiss, photos where there was no possible ambiguity, she broke down and started crying, saying, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know how it happened. It was a mistake." I told her that a mistake is forgetting to buy milk at the supermarket, not fucking my younger brother for months while stealing my money. And then I showed her the bank records, the transfers to the hidden account, the information about Silas Hart and the fraudulent scheme. She tried to explain that Ethan had told her it was a legitimate investment, that she didn't know it was fraud, but I reminded her that she'd used money from our joint accounts without my permission or knowledge, which was theft, regardless of whether the investment was legitimate or not. I told her I'd hired Gregory, that I'd already initiated the divorce process, and that all our accounts would be frozen in the next few hours to prevent her from moving more money. Lauren begged me to reconsider, that we could go to couples therapy, that she'd end things with Ethan, all the typical speech that cheating people give when they're caught, but I was already beyond that point. I'd spent weeks processing this, and there was no going back. I gave her 24 hours to pack her things and get out of the house, which was technically mine because I'd bought it before we got married with money from my inheritance from my grandfather, and I told her that any future communication would be through lawyers. After Lauren went to pack her things in total shock, I drove straight to Ethan's apartment, which was about 30 minutes away in a new complex near the financial district. I knocked on the door, and when he opened it, wearing a t-shirt and pajama pants, because it was like 10 inches the morning on a Saturday, I could see on his face that he knew exactly why I was there. I didn't give him a chance to speak. I just walked into the apartment, closed the door behind me, and told him I know everything about you and Lauren. I know about the money she's been giving you. I know about Silas Hart and his shitty scheme, and now you're going to listen to me very carefully. Ethan tried to defend Lauren, saying she was unhappy in our marriage, that I ignored her, that they really loved each other. All the pathetic justifications that people who commit this kind of betrayal use to feel better about themselves. I told him I didn't care about their reasons, that what they'd done was unforgivable and they were going to pay the consequences. I showed him the same documents I'd shown Lauren, the photos, the bank records, everything, and explained that Gregory was already working with authorities to investigate Silas Hart's scheme, and that both he and Lauren would probably face legal consequences for participating in financial fraud, even if they were also victims of the scheme. Ethan got defensive, saying I couldn't prove he'd done anything illegal, that the money transfers were between Lauren and Silas, didn't involve him directly. I responded that I had text messages Tom had recovered, where he actively encouraged Lauren to invest more money in the scheme, promising her ridiculous returns, and that made him an accomplice in the scam. Plus, I told him that even if he didn't end up in prison, I'd make sure everyone in his professional life knew exactly what kind of person he was, that I'd destroy his reputation so completely, he wouldn't be able to get a job, even as a receptionist. The part that satisfied me most was watching the color drain from his face as I spoke, realizing I wasn't joking, that I was really going to do everything I said. Before leaving, I told him I hoped Lauren had been worth it, because he'd just ruined his life for a woman who would probably leave him the moment things got difficult, and I walked out of the apartment without looking back. I drove home, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness, like I'd won a battle but was still in the middle of a war I never asked to fight. The following weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and family drama. My mother, Deanne, called about 2 days after Lauren left the house, and her first question was, "Why are you doing this? Why can't you forgive and move on?" I explained the whole situation to her, the affair, the stolen money, the fraud, but she kept defending Ethan, saying he was young and had made a mistake, that family should forgive each other. I told her that forgiveness was something I might consider in 20 years, but definitely not now, and that if she wanted to maintain a relationship with me, she needed to accept my decision and stop pressuring me to reconcile with my traitor brother. Deanne kept calling for weeks, leaving long voicemails about the importance of family, about how Dad would have wanted us to stay together. My father had died of cancer 5 years ago, about how Ethan was devastated and sorry. Eventually, I stopped answering her calls and sent her a text message telling her to respect my space, or I'd cut contact with her too, which finally made her shut up, although I know she wasn't happy with the situation. The truth is, it hurt to lose my mother that way, but she'd chosen to defend Ethan over supporting me, and that choice had consequences. Meanwhile, Gregory was working on freezing all the relevant accounts, including the hidden account Lauren had been using. The bank cooperated completely once we showed them evidence of the fraudulent scheme, and we managed to recover about $18,000 of the $30,000 Lauren had transferred. The rest had already been moved by Silas Hart to offshore accounts that would be almost impossible to trace. Gregory filed the divorce papers with such a solid case that Lauren's lawyer basically advised her to sign without fighting, because she had no chance of winning in court, not with all the photographic and financial evidence we had. But I wasn't satisfied with just the divorce. I wanted Ethan to pay professionally too, so I started making calls to people in the tech industry I knew through my work. I told several contacts about what Ethan had done, obviously without lying or exaggerating anything, just the pure facts, and the news spread fast because the tech industry is surprisingly small and gossipy. In less than a month, Ethan was fired from his job at the startup with the excuse of budget cuts, but I knew the truth, that the founders had heard about his involvement in the fraudulent scheme and didn't want to be associated with him. The divorce was finalized about 4 months after the initial confrontation. Lauren signed the papers without saying a word, probably because her lawyer had explained that fighting would only cost her more money she didn't have and would result in the same final outcome. I kept the house, most of our shared assets, and she left with basically nothing except her clothes and some furniture she'd bought before we got married. I didn't feel sorry for her for even a second. She'd made her choice, and now was living with the consequences. The best part of all came about 2 months later, when the bank finally completed its investigation of the fraudulent scheme and reported everything to federal financial authorities. Silas Hart was arrested for securities fraud and conspiracy, facing up to 20 years in prison. And although Ethan and Lauren were technically victims of the scheme too, the bank imposed heavy fines on them for participating in suspicious transfers without proper diligence, something about how they should have known it was too good to be true. Ethan had to pay like $8,000 in fines, plus interest, money he didn't have because I'd ruined his professional career, so he had to borrow it from Mom, who apparently gave him the money without hesitation because he was still her perfect golden child even after all this. The last time I heard anything about Ethan was about 6 months ago, when Marcus told me he'd heard he'd moved to another city. I think Denver or Seattle. basically fleeing from the shame and the impossibility of getting decent work here. Lauren also moved eventually. I don't know where, and honestly, I don't care. I blocked her number and all her social media the day she signed the divorce papers, and haven't thought about her beyond. When I tell this story, my relationship with Mom is still tense. We talk maybe once a month in awkward calls where we avoid mentioning Ethan or what happened. But I know she's still in contact with him and will probably always be on his side no matter what. How am I now? Better, I guess. In a strange way. The first months after the divorce were difficult. I'm not gonna lie. There were nights when I'd wake up at 3 inches the morning, feeling that sharp pain in my chest again. Thinking about all the lies and the times they made me feel crazy for suspecting something when my instinct was completely right. But over time, that pain turned into something more like indifference, as if that whole part of my life had happened to someone else and I was just watching from outside. I sold the house 2 months ago because it had too many memories and moved to a smaller apartment downtown, a modern place with no history where I can start from scratch. At work, I got promoted to chief financial officer 3 months ago. Ironic, considering my personal life was a disaster, but my professional career was flourishing. And now I earn almost double what I earned when I was married. Marcus and I are still best friends. We go out for beers every Friday, and he constantly tells me I need to start dating someone again, meet new people. But, honestly, I have no interest yet in serious relationships. Maybe I never will after what happened. I've gone on some casual dates, nothing serious, just to remind myself there are normal people out there who aren't going to betray you with your own brother and steal your money. Last week, I got a text message from an unknown number that said, "Nicholas, it's Ethan. I need to talk to you. Please give me a chance to explain." And I deleted it without even thinking twice. There's nothing he can say that will change what he did. No explanation or apology that makes that betrayal any less devastating. And, frankly, I don't have the energy or interest in hearing his pathetic justifications. I blocked the number and went on with my day as if nothing happened, because that's what he and Lauren are to me now, nothing. People who used to be in my life, but who made decisions that permanently eliminated them from it. Do I regret how I handled all this? No, not one bit. Some people will probably think I went too far, that I should have been more compassionate or given them another chance. But those people don't understand what it feels like to have the two people you trusted most conspiring behind your back, laughing at you while they rob you and plan their future together with your own money. I gave them exactly what they deserved, consequences proportional to their actions, and if that makes me vengeful or ruthless, then I guess I am. I can live with that much easier than I could live knowing I let them get away with it.